Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of the Coaching Union podcast. This is a very special crossover edition featuring our friend and host of the British Baseball podcast, Mathew Mutton. I'm Jonathan Rodriguez, joined by my fantastic co-host, Charlie Batho. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the roots of the Coaching Union podcast, how it started, the collaborative spirit behind it, and the lessons we've gained from interviewing inspiring guests across different sports. Remember, if you're interested in one-to-one coaching or player mentorship, just drop me a line at thecoachingunion@gmail.com. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's dive in.
Yeah. So as you naturally talk like this, the plan is that you just fade the recording in, and it makes it sound like you've been talking for ages, which we have.
We have.
I mean, we've had a whole podcast worth of material before we even hit record. And now I'm going to bland it out. I'm going to be like the fish and chips of podcast guests. Now I'm like, yeah, this was great.
Chips bland?
Yeah, massively.
Oh, right, okay. Turns out I'm not very adventurous when it comes to food then.
With as much white bread and butter as you can fit on your plate.
Yeah, that suits me.
Well, welcome to the food podcast, everyone.
Before we forget, Matt, let's dive right into that idea that you came up with right before we hit record, and you said that you were going to forget about.
Go on. I forgot about it. It's a good thing this is like a cross-platform thing where we're each other's gift for this show. For those who know my dulcet tones, Matthew from the British Baseball podcast, and been trying to get something sorted with J-Rod for a while, and I've just been too lazy to press record. So he's said, let's collaborate and do this podcast. And J-Rod and Charlie now have their own podcast, the Coaching Union, which if you are not listening to, you should get on it now while it's new and fresh. There are 4 episodes in at time of recording. Some wonderful stuff. You've had some great guests on so far. So my question to you before you try to question me, and I can try and think about what I was saying before. Why did you decide to do a podcast? What specifically was it about the coaching and coaching philosophies that was appealing to you?
It's something that I've been wanting to do, is help drive coach education in general, but specifically in the country. And it's something that I've been doing through my doctorate and learning about. But before we get to the hows and the whys, I just want to say thank you, Matt, because when we did come up with the idea and when we did brainstorm it and Charlie and I had the conversation, you were the first person I reached out to for help, and you walked me through it, and you took time. You sacrificed a couple lunch breaks on some Monday, Tuesday afternoons to sit down with me and take me through everything from the recording to the editing to the platforms and all that. And yeah, I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. You would have worked out eventually. If I can,
it would have taken a long time.
Nah, you'd be right.
I'll probably still be sorting it out now, but I don't know, Charlie. Do you want to tell the story of the birth of the Coaching Union podcast? The idea.
Yeah, I mean, I can give it a go. I mean, I guess maybe to go a bit further back, one day I got a very random message in a Slack group that I was no longer really part of. And it was from J-Rod, and it was, "Hi Charlie, are you still on this?" I saw it on the way out of the building, and I was like, okay, I'll deal with that in a minute. Next thing, I get a WhatsApp from the same guy. I'm like, okay, must be important. So he then basically, I'd pick up the phone to him. I'd just spent the previous year in opposite dugouts to him, which, by the way, is not a great experience. It's just not someone you want to go up against. And I mean this in the most complimentary way. I hated you at that time because everything you did was designed to make me hate you, because that's just how it worked. I was like, okay, what can this be about? And then, so began the journey of J-Rod saying, like, look, I've got this time. I've got my own interests here. This is what I want to do with my time going forward. And I think I could be of use to you as a player, and maybe even in a wider role to the club, and support our neck of the woods at the north, and sort of help grow. And then the journey started. Geographically, in our team, we're 2 of the closer guys in quite a spread out team geographically, which has led to a fair few car journeys. And then what started off as me asking quite direct questions about baseball, and J-Rod refusing to just give me a plain answer and make me sort of develop myself, has now turned into these like really weird conversations where me, from no educational background in terms of sport, just experience. We'll ask a question to someone on his way to having a doctorate in the matter, and I'll come up with my own sort of brainwashed theories and present them to J-Rod, and he'll be like, he'll send me 2 articles. He'll be like, okay, well, here are the 2 articles for the theory that you think that you've just created. And I'll read up on it, and I'm like, yeah, well, these guys really know what they're talking about. This is fantastic. And then in the same sort of way, J-Rod will bring like long, very philosophical thoughts to me, and just be like, how do I make this, with a human touch, digestible to athletes, digestible to people in a small space? And I put it into human words for him, and he was like, one day, again, 2 guys that are just trying to be helpful, trying to grow the sport. We realised that we should create a platform where we work on that, and we make it guest heavy. I try and bring my sort of experience background of being British in British baseball and falling out from other sports, and Jared tries to bring his background in education and obviously deep-rooted culture of growing up in not only a country that has the sport deeply rooted into it, but California specifically, it's a year-round event and occurrence, and together we try and sort of make it better than it was yesterday. I don't want to sound too grandiose there, because that makes it sound like we're doing the Lord's work, but just one little step at a time. Hopefully, if 1 or 2 people listen to it, hopefully they take something from it and feel a bit less alone, because we've certainly taken a few steps at times, and I remember staring at ceiling tiles thinking, I'm way over my head here, and truth is we never were.
No. And the really good thing about the content as well that you're producing is that it's very much legacy content as well. So it doesn't matter who you're interviewing and what you're interviewing and when you're interviewing, the stuff still sticks, and the conversations that you're having, it's not rooted in a particular state in time, and it really works because you can go back and listen to it like 5-10 years time, unless something like massively drastic changed within the coaching spectrums. But I mean, you've got guests there that are giving great advice that you can listen to and be inspired by and go back to and make notes on, and just keep digesting and building on and making your own thoughts and opinions of what they said. It's really good stuff. You should be very proud of what you produced so far, and I'm really excited to see what else comes from off the back of it.
Thanks, Matt. That was the idea, was to build something that people can go back to later on and years down the road, can still get something from principles and frameworks that have been used for a long time and will continue to be used for a long time. So the idea is to have it kind of backed by science. Again, Charlie makes that more human-like and distills it, brings like the British touch as far as growing up in this environment and growing up within British baseball. But that was the idea. We were doing these car rides for about a year and a half. And just at the last AGM, I put myself forward for coaching commissioner, and unfortunately I didn't get elected, and I was gutted, I'll be honest. And we were driving home, and we were having another one of those drives, and Charlie was like, we're just chatting back and forth. He's like, how you feeling? Man, I'm gutted. He's like, what were you going to do with it anyways? And I said, you know what, Charlie, I would have made a podcast. Like, I really wanted to make a podcast and do it through the BBF. And he's like, why don't you just do it? You've got
100%.
the skills, like you could figure it out. You've got the knowledge, like you don't need that platform. You can just build it your own, on your own. And he just made it sound so achievable and simple. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. And we spent the rest of the way home from lovely Leicester kind of brainstorming podcast ideas. So I personally love listening to podcasts. I'm a lifelong learner. I do a lot of it through podcasts. I drive like maybe an hour and a half a day to work, round trips. So I spend a lot of time in the car listening to podcasts. So I have some influences, kind of had an idea of what I wanted it to look like, building that legacy, and had people such as yourself, Matt, who are willing to pick up the phone and help us through the process. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to help with anyone that wants to do a podcast. I think having a podcast, I don't know why more people across the country within British baseball don't have their own podcast, either about their own teams or something that they're really passionate about. Because my word for this year is create. So at the start of the year, I write something down that's going to be like my mantra, and it's great. And it's a great creative outlet. It's great to be inspired by people and getting ideas from people. And if you enjoy listening to podcasts, why not start your own? It's not the hardest thing in the world to do. It can be extremely cheap. It can be easy to do. You get yourself a workplace headset if you've got one, or on your phone. Like I started off in my car with my phone, just talking to Anchor. And get your audience, go for it. What's stopping you? Nothing. And if anyone needs help with it, just send me a message and I'll do whatever I can do to help you get it off the ground.
Just building off that, selfishly, the conversations that we've had, process of talking to these people, and then like going through the process of editing and listening to it back, the learning is just, it's through the roof. It's on another level. For the person going through that process. It's extremely helpful.
Yeah. I find after a session, sometimes I would miss because I have to write the notes down.
Yeah.
As I'm going, because I want to make sure I've got the content through. But yeah, when it comes out to editing, I'm like, wow, that was a really good point. And it sort of made me want to become more of an active listener as well, which is a skill that I really need to work on before. And so podcasting in a way has tried to help me focus and pay attention to what's being said, because for something to sound more organic, you want to have that conversation. I write my questions down. That anyone's been a guest or people probably know by now through the questions asked. It is quite a scripted format, mine, because I need that for my brain injury stuff. It helps me to be focused on what I've got. But there's so many things you could miss by not having an actual conversation. And it was Max Whittle told me something when I interviewed him after he finished recording. He said, don't be afraid to just keep going on that one thread. If you've got an hour to interview someone and you don't ask 9 out of your 10 questions, or one question leads you down a rabbit hole, go down that rabbit hole. Have that natural conversation, just see where it takes you. Pay attention to what your guest is saying. Enjoy having that conversation with somebody. And it took me ages to get into that mindset. And really, I think it was like season 2 before I started adapting and changing that, and being able to ask questions on the fly and off the back of things, because I think I was a bit too scared to maybe put someone on the spot or to ask maybe the question that may have made someone feel uncomfortable. Because I don't like bringing politics into the show. Like I said before, it's about legacy content. And, trying to make it relevant and be now and be about the guest. Again, like I said before, not trying to make them feel awkward. But once you get caught up in your own head, I stopped enjoying the process and it became like a bit of a burden. And now it's just become like a relaxed, let's just go. Let's chat. Rarely sending stuff out now. 1 or 2 bullet point questions, all the research that I can do on the guest. And then that's just there in case I need to reference something.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the things that we kind of focused on was making it sort of guest heavy. I think just the nature of our sort of immediate audience, the chances are that you can be misfortunate enough to be caught in a bar with me and J-Rod. But the guests that we've sort of had, again, will struggle to get that opportunity, let alone the wider community. I mean, I'm just thinking of Danny from episode 1. I wouldn't even know what country to guess to sit in a bar to meet him for a drink in an evening, let alone like what city, what bar specifically. One of the things that we kind of really wanted to get a hold of was the fact that, the more and more it develops, everyone is going to be kind of like hugely different. And one of the things that we noticed, maybe the second one in, was like, okay, themes are already developing here. And you've got a guy who's hopping from country to country, developing all sorts of different things, to someone who has moved maybe an hour tops in drive from his last 2 teams. But the themes are the same, the principles are the same. Good values in coaching are still good values in coaching, no matter where it is. One of the other things that we really focused on was like, whilst we have very specific interests and baseball is a very specific niche sport, we wanted everything that we discussed to be palatable by quite a wide audience, because there's no reason for it not to be. We don't believe in sort of deep inner mechanical style coaching, focusing on the body as an engine or a machine. We focus on behavioural things, mental things, and environmental things, and most of the coaches we speak to are the same way.
What have been some of the most, let's say, which sort of philosophies have stuck out the most to you? Because I was thrown in the deep end in coaching when I was in charge of my son's basketball team for a season. There's probably maybe 8 games was the season. The guy that was supposed to be the coach never turned up for the first game, didn't tell anybody that he wasn't going to be there, and the assistant coach didn't turn up. So I just went, I'll do it. I'll take the kids this session, and then that became the next session and the next session throughout the game. And one of the things I wanted to do straight away, pardon me, was setting there some philosophies. And I must have had notebooks full of coaching philosophies and information and advice on what to do with coaching kids, because I was going into this like proper in the deep end. So what have you learned, and what have been some of the best philosophies that you found by interviewing your guests so far?
So of the 3 guests, we've had a professional baseball coach, we've had a professional football manager, first team women's football manager, and we've had a mental skills coach from the sports psychology world. I guess the FA works from a 4-corner model. So if you start with that 4-corner model, imagine like a graph with 4 corners. They do technical and tactical in one box, physical in another box, psychological in one box, and social in one box. So those are the 4 boxes. That's basically how they break up the sport. And they say coaches should have elements of all 4 corners within their training sessions. They should pay attention to these 4 corners when dealing with their players and their teams. But how you order those 4 categories is that, I guess that would be the art of coaching. Do you prioritize, like Charlie said, we don't really look at the mechanical, like the body as a machine. Well, that would be the technical and tactical part. Some coaches do. They would put technical, tactical at the top. The theme that's been emerging through our episodes so far, I obviously expected it with the sports psychologist, but the other 2 guys I didn't, was that the psychological and the social are the foundation of it all. And they drive the technical and tactical and physical. So without those mental skills and without a good social environment, you're not going to get as much out of the athlete on a physical, technical, or tactical level. And those were themes from 2 different sports, different parts of the world, completely different humans. I know both of them very well, and completely different people who kind of, march to the beat of the same drum as far as what they prioritize in their athletes and in their training session.
Do you find that the philosophies that have been spoken about so far, do they translate for you regardless of sport? Is it, say, like someone that's listening to cricket could listen to the coach, the football coach podcast and take things from that? And also, are there different philosophies depending on age ranges as well, or do you think it's transcends?
I mean, the first thing I noticed episode 1 was how similar a Danny Callahan session would be for a 12-year-old audience as it would be to a pro audience, and how those core values wouldn't necessarily change. Social response changes a little bit, but within the same framework. So feedback's going to take a slightly different approach, but still be the same feedback. And maybe expectation changes a little bit, but end result and end goal is still a similar thing. It's the same journey, you're just on a different end of the journey. And I think it was even quite noticeable too, talking about a football team. I mean, the small context, the really interesting thing was how in that sort of off-season window, they created the nucleus of the team from scratch again, having lost a lot of players, brought a lot of people in, found themselves with the first 14 games, J-Rod? Yeah, 14 games unbeaten to start the season straight away. About how he was sort of having to evaluate his expectations on the fly, and about how that team kind of created new expectations of itself. And you kind of noticed how, there is that theory of expectation straight there, and how, a good expectation doesn't matter its audience. It's about being true to itself, and it's about having that as an internal process, and you just as a coach, just being a mirror of that person. I found that absolutely fascinating because it was so similar. It's not about me reflecting my, theoretically, and it's crazy to say this, and every time I say this out loud, I think it's absolutely wild, but theoretically, I am J-Rod's coach. And when it comes round to the time that I give him feedback, I'm not casting my expectations on him as a player. I'm being a mirror for what he should be looking to achieve himself, based on the capabilities I've seen of him in 3 years as a player and as a person. And that's, that reigns true between his under-23 checks, the pro players he's worked with, the under-12s that he's worked with, and so on and so forth.
If I could just add to that, they showed it's kind of crazy you bring that up, Charlie, because something that was fascinating that all three of our guests so far have shown was that they have what you just described, where it is a very high standard and they walk the righteous path, as we talked about in the episode with James, and it's a philosophy of Charlie's, walking the righteous path as a coach. And those standards do not slip with these guys. They work at a very high level, but what they can do, and I found it fascinating, we're talking about threads and seeing this thread, is that they can, and they mentioned this, they can meet the player where they're at with the delivery of those standards. So the standards actually never slip, but what they communicate, how they approach, how they deliver those standards are individualized to the player, and not just to the player, but how the player's feeling that day, how the player's performing, what's going on in their head. And I guess that's the professionalism of coaching, is being able to keep those standards, maintain those standards, but adapt the delivery to each individual. It's beautiful. It was great to hear, and it's just great to listen to and learn from these guys on how to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there's I'm not what you'd be considered a coach's coach, and in episode late on in episode 2 that becomes quite clear. I'll not spoil it for anyone who wants to go back and listen to it, because I was there making comparisons with a guy, asking him who he had, who his footballing hero was when he was growing up, and he was already at that stage thinking about managers. But one of the guys that I'm quite fascinated with is the NFL coach of the Steelers, Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
Because he's had a really good run under a lot of adversity and a lot of changing pieces. He's also managed to put a saddle on a lot of big personalities. He's got a good winning record in the NFL. And there's a clip of his, I have it saved in my own Twitter DMs to myself. And one of the things that he talks about is about how he just puts up a slide that says reasonable expectations, and he said it's a reasonable expectation to expect you to be better than you are now in 5 months' time at the end of the season. And he's saying that to a room of people where he'll have 12-year veterans, he'll have people that are at the top of their game, all-star caliber players for the sport, and he's saying that to rookies. And he's not saying, okay, that 12-year veteran's got to go and repeat his 29 age season at the age of 35. He's just saying he has to be a little bit better than he is right this second, and he has to learn and has to fit the team in the correct way. And he's not saying to the rookie, okay, you've got to go out at 21 and give your 29-year-old season here. You've got to give a contract season straight out of the gates. He's just saying, just be better than you are now.
It's interesting you should say that, because I've just going a little bit off topic. I do miniature painting, like Warhammer figures and stuff like that, and I look at a lot of different people's artworks and art styles, and I would get frustrated and stressed that my work didn't look as good as theirs. And I learned very quickly to not compare myself to others, but compare myself to myself. And
Yeah,
that is
absolutely.
something that I've been trying to install in my little one, is when I'm saying, well, it's not as good as that. It's like, it doesn't have to be as good as that. Look at where you've been, look at your journey, from where you started off not too long ago to where you are now. It's miles better. It's such an improvement. And just trying to keep their focus on them and not the wider picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's the old expression? Is it comparison is the thief of joy? Have I made that up, or is that a real thing?
If you made it up, it sounds good.
There's a theory called social comparison where athletes feel it. Yeah, it's backed by theory.
Have we just done a live example of what we are?
Yeah. It's
God,
come
this
full
is like-
circle.
This is like the sports version of Infinite Monkey Cage with J-Rod's Brian Cox and Chuck, you're the comedian. And it's exactly like that. Whereas he'll go off on all the sciencey stuff, and we've got you there to break it down and talk to people.
Take that, Matt. I'm curious. How many episodes is the British Baseball Podcast at?
Oh, mate, I couldn't even tell you. I think it's over 200. I stopped counting at one point. But when I started out, I was doing my interviews, and then on a Monday, I was doing the Roundup show where I was on the BBF website.
I remember that.
Every single league within British baseball, I was on their website or Facebook page, and all the results in, trying to get people on the Sunday to record like a 5-minute, like I want it to be like Match of the Day, where you had a little interview with the manager at the end, and then they could go, and this is what happened in this game. Boom, package done. and that would take me my break, my lunch, and my afternoon break on a Monday, and then I would try and edit in that last break to be published for tea time on the Monday, so it's out there and fresh. So in that first season, I probably did about 50 episodes straight away because I was double dutying, and my son was 2 as well. So I was like, that stuff, double episodes of baseball. It was absolutely chaotic. It was unsustainable. But then season 2, I tried to do 1 episode a week, regardless of whether it's in season or off season. And I found that pretty difficult. And I started stockpiling episodes. So I'd record in advance and have like 6 guests line up. And I'd be burnt out one week and I'm like, no, that needs to go on. I'd be too tired that the next week, that needs to go on. And then you just work your way through your bank of guests that you had saved for a rainy day sort of thing. Or if you were ill, you could just drop an episode, like an emergency episode. So I'd have to do a proper count, but I think I've probably done close to 300, if not a few more. But I remember hitting that 100 milestone was massive for me. I never thought I was going to do like 2 or 3 episodes. I thought it'd be out it would just fizzle like a piece of torch paper. But the support and the backing of the British baseball community straight away, after that first episode, I had Kevin McAdam on to me straight away because I worked in the same business as his wife and found out through like some baseball channels and chats within work, I think it was. And then he literally opened up his phone book of people within Bridge, like Josh Chetwynd, everybody. Here's loads of people lined up for you. Off you go. I'll be forever thankful for that. And I was like, well, I can't stop now. I'll keep going. And for years, I was wishing someone else would do it better than me just so I could stop. And nobody did.
No, it's really odd. Looking back, I was kind of my only surprise is someone didn't do it sooner. Not necessarily that someone did it better, because like the caliber of guest for our community was really good. You got that phone book early on, and people really backed, and obviously the quality went up and up. And I mean that from like a technical, technological point of view is what I meant. And yeah, and as you say, I think. I can't remember if we were discussing this beforehand, before we hit record or after, but you hit a confident stride. So I think you said about halfway through series 2. Describe to me, if you can, what was that breakthrough in confidence for yourself? What was that ingredient that hit you at that time?
It's hard to put it down to, I think because I'd mentally restrained myself beforehand, I wanted to keep it safe. So For those who don't know, it's been mentioned a few times on my show. I suffered a life-changing brain injury back in 2014. It changed my life from short-term memory issues, smell, taste, concentration, short-term memory. I'll stop now. So for me...
Am I allowed to laugh? What are the rules?
Of course, if I'm laughing, go for it.
I didn't laugh after the first 2. The third one got me.
Yeah.
That's not bad by American standards of sarcasm either.
But it was hard because I had to keep it scripted so that I could get everything I wanted to say across. But I would have conversations with the guests beforehand and get their input. So I would make sure that I wasn't missing out on anything that I want to. And I always have the open question at the end. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to talk about? Now's the time to do it, sort of thing, so that we can go over it. It wasn't until Max had mentioned about just going and talking, and if you forget about something, that's fine. It's gone because you'll go into something else. And it just made it was liberating because I don't have a notepad in front of me now. No pen, no paper. I have an iPad because I'm trying to save the planet. But that's not even on. Like I try to be there in the moment with the guest talking about it. And if I'm thinking about it too much, then I'll forget what I'm trying to go into. Or I won't be ready for the next question. Or I've missed some nugget that could have led on to a brilliant answer. So it was just being present and being there at that moment with the guest and just talking. Have a few bullet points for stuff that you wanted, because you definitely don't want to miss out on like having a silver medal from the Barcelona European Championships in 2007.
Wow.
And if you're not paying attention to your guests when they mention it, then that moment's gone. And you missed out on a really great bit of information that they might want to know about. That's not me hinting, by the way, that I want to talk about that medal. GB Hall of Fame Alan Smith got in contact with John from Bat Flipping Nerds, who passed him on to me, and he got a load of great historical baseball memorabilia from out his playing career and coaching stuff and everything. I've got his books. So my son to me as well, so I've got his little book.
Oh, nice.
Got loads of stuff from him. And that's what made me want to try and switch my focus onto a bit more historical stuff this year. And talking about things. And Andrew Taylor, who does the Folkestone Baseball Chronicle, has very, very generously, because I've been urging him to do a podcast on his stuff, and he just said, I can use the material. So I'm going to give him all the credit for the stuff that's come out. So in future episodes, you're going to hear lots of information from British baseball past and history, because it kind of takes a bit of pressure away from me than trying to get in touch with guests and get people, because I've let a lot of people down during this. For every pretty good interview that I've had, there's probably been one person that I've let down. I mean, J-Rod, yourself, trying to get this episode started, we've been going on about this for weeks, and sometimes I've got Jonathan Crammon patiently waiting to talk about the Under 23 Baseball World Cup, which was months ago, and even longer than that, I've got Bats and Beef from the Leicester Diamonds. They've been trying to get something started with them, and I'm my own worst enemy. I try to get something started and get sidetracked, and I let people down. So I think focusing, and I'm trying this year, I'm trying, as well as doing the create stuff, I'm trying to declutter personally, mentally, and I'm actually surrounded by piles of books and piles of board games on this side and stuff, but I need to strip back and start making time for myself so that I am a better host for my guest. Because like we were talking beforehand, like my day starts in between 6:30, 6, and I take like go for breakfast with little in, school run sometimes. Then I've got a full day of work, after school club stuff. Then I'd be podcast interviewing or doing something after school club with little in. It's his bedtime. That takes up to 8 o'clock, 8:30. And then between 8:30 and 10 o'clock when I go to bed, I've either got to do an interview or decompress and do something. And I can't be the best host for my guest, who deserve the best person, not just me. Anybody that's interviewing them should be able to comprehensively like conversations together with them and not look like they're about to fall asleep. But it's not fair on the people that tune in and listen every week, and it's definitely not fair on the guest. And they deserve to be to get the best out of the person that's, trying to put them in a better light. And I've not always done that. And I as soon as an interview's finished and we've signed off, I'm thinking I could have been a lot better for my guests there, and I feel like I've let them down. And I carry that all the time, and I always question whether I'm the right person to be doing this. I know Joe talked about it at the start, but I always do it. And you got to look at people that are podcasting at the moment within, let's not start as, but like Backflip and Nerds, consistently. Their stuff this year is another level. The guests they've had on, the interviews, everything, they've always, in my opinion, done a great job. John and Jason, when they were doing ball caps, bagpipes, superb content, superb, like birds with balls. You can look at everyone like Dodging Sleep with Bleasy, everyone that's doing stuff, and I listen to them, and again, like we were talking before about not comparing like stuff, but I hear their stuff and I'm like, I'm not even in the same game as them comparatively. But then, my show is just me on my own. Everything, editing, research, hosting, distribution. I'm not using that as an excuse, but it's great we got teams. And I have been fortunate to have people give me their time and volunteer and help me out, because it is all voluntary. No one was getting paid. There's no sponsorships. A funny story, I did once get approached by a men's body hair grooming company about ad sponsorship.
Nice.
I like Chewbacca on this t-shirt, but it's like they didn't have enough listeners for it, and I thought that was really weird. Can you imagine that? British Baseball Podcast, a family baseball show, being sponsored by Genital Clip. Brilliant. Yeah. But we like everything with British baseball, it's run by volunteer, passionate people, and probably why I've not started the season until you lit the fuse, J-Rod. It's just trying to get the time and the energy and the right mindset. I listen to a lot of stuff on mindset, some spirituality stuff, stoicism, coaching stuff, minimalist stuff, just ways to try and get myself to being a better, not just for podcasts, but for my family, because they're the ones that come first, before podcasts, before any hobbies, before anything else. The two people that I live with, that the closest to me and that I love more than anything else. And it all starts with them. I've got to be the best person for them. And then I can become a better podcast host, and I can become this, and this. But it's about trying to get rid of everything that's up here and organize it and sort it out, and, try to start each day fresh and build, like I said, with coaching. It's not just for me, what's good about it is your podcast is about coaching and the coaching union. But stuff you can take away from and apply to life. It's not just about.
Is that something along those lines that I remember me and J-Rod were just hitting in a gym hall together. It was just the two of us. And I was like really caught up in my own head about how time was speeding up, like how I'd reached a point where weeks had started to really like spin together and time was speeding up. And I said to Jared, I was like, well, no offense, Jared, you're a couple of years older than me. Is time faster for you? And he just went, dude, wait till you have a kid. It's like time traveling.
100%. Nothing ages you like having a kid. My son's 7. And
Yeah.
I like get on my phone, I get the memories that come up on my photos. And it's like, how's that 4 years ago?
Crazy.
It's even bigger mind bender for me today. I had a chat with somebody that I met 20 years ago in my second season working in Greece. 20 years ago. And that to me feels like it could have been 5, 6 years ago, but it's not. And then what will even mess your head up even more is that you think that's quick, 20 years has gone there. You add that to now, I'm going to be 65 when you add that sort of time length. And then you're like, well, done. That's it. But yeah, time, the one resource that we wish we had more of, but it's the one thing that we waste so easily without even thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about picking the right sort of waste of time, isn't it?
And that's
waste your time in the right way. You touched upon history. If you go down the historical route for the podcast in the future, there is something that I am dying for someone to shed a little bit of light on.
Go on.
So, one day I read through like all of Project Cobb.
Good, isn't it?
It brilliantly put together. Like for anyone who was sad enough to read all the way through it, which I'm now sad enough to say, there was a kid in. I've just pulled it up now. 1987, who was, I think he was at the Cobham School that still exists, and he played for a team called the Cobham Yankees. He won the equivalent of the National League at the time in 1987. And he pitched a shutout at 16 years old, and apparently, like my small digging into this, so he threw a 9-inning shutout. He went 3 for 3 with a triple, hitting for himself at 16, and apparently he was throwing like 87 miles an hour in the 80s. I am dying for someone to find this guy. Apparently he moved back to Japan. That has got to be your whale, your Moby Dick here. Has got to be finding this guy.
Like, this is Japan the country, not Japan Wiltshire.
Is there a Japan in Wiltshire?
No, Charlie, no, there's not. But like,
you've got to hunt him down. He sounds just like the boy of all boys. He sounds like such a
boy of all boys.
Do we have a name?
Hey, I mean, he deserves the smallest shout out anyone's ever gonna get, which is whatever.
If you've made it to minute 45 podcast,
he's called Itoni Kuramitsu, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah,
and
Tony Kuramitsu.
Read through the entire of Project Cobb and say that is not maybe the all-time most ballsy performance. Apparently, like there's depending on the source, he might have been 14 at the time. 14, 87 mile an hour, 3 for 3 with a triple, shut out 9 innings. I mean, his arm's going to be like a pepperami, but like, imagine the stories. Like, what happened after that?
Imagine if he went on to be massive and we had no idea. He's just like some Hall of Fame Japanese baseball player.
Yeah, maybe.
You're right, though. Those are the stories that I really want to focus on. But again, it's getting the time. I mean, I was actually fortunate enough. I'm going to show you something now. Someone tracked me down when I was at college and sent me. You read that? The Old Timers Baseball 2013. This used to be a club. This is their media guide.
Wow.
And it's a profile it's from Colin Ramsey. He wrote me a note, and it's all about there's players and fact files and their history and their stuff in the game, photographs, articles, clippings. Look how fat that file is.
Wow.
Grave.
You know what I mean? I have no excuse for not producing brilliant content when people are sending me stuff like this. And yet, again, it's just time. Getting the time, just be able to sit down and unpack and go, this is going to be my focus today. I'm going to do this, concentrate on doing it and do that. There's always something. There's always something to do. There's always things that are popping up. And again, that's why I was saying at the start, like, I always question, am I the right person to be doing this? I'd like to think so because I love it. Absolutely love it. And like I was saying off air at the start, like, it kills me that I'm not involved in British baseball as much as I want to be, but I just don't have the time. I've got other commitments. Family always comes first. Family commitments outweigh anything. I'd much rather be doing stuff with them than being stood in a field in Sheffield for 4 hours. Sorry, Charlie.
None taken.
But yeah, you just. I find that I'm not the only one. There's similar people. There's people in similar situations twice, and it'll come around. It will do eventually. Just gotta be patient, and it'll get there soon.
You hit on something, Matt. If you really boil it down, like, you're spot on. And as much as that hurts me, because if you've ever been to Sheffield on a Sunday, game 2 of a doubleheader, when they have bingo in the community hall next to the field, there is no place I'd rather. Well, maybe there are a couple other places, but it's up there. But I get it. I get your perspective, because we talk about comparing. Might not be the most healthy thing, but let's compare baseball to football. Might be unfair, but it's a reality where there's a sport where you can drive 15 minutes down the road, finish by 10:30 on a Saturday or Sunday, and then be back for all that family time. You have the whole Saturday, the whole Sunday. Baseball in this country, from my perspective, to compete at the NBL at the level that I want to compete at the age I'm at, I need to start preparing halfway through Saturday. I got to make sure I eat right. I got to make sure I hydrate. I got to make sure my body gets ready. I wake up sometimes at 4 a.m. to go drive down to Essex, or it's going to be Croydon this year, probably leaving at 4:30, 5 o'clock to get there for 9, and 2 hours of pregame BP. We're talking from 10 o'clock till about 5:30. I'm on my feet. So for me to do that, I need to start on Saturday. I need to go to bed at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. I need to pack my lunch. I need to get everything ready. It's like getting ready to go to war, man. And then actually when you get there, it's a whole day event, and you're getting back for 12 o'clock, and then you're waking up and you're going to work on Monday morning sore. And if I really want to take care of my body, I actually have to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym before work, so that my body doesn't break down the next week, so I can recover properly. So you can do that if you're insane, or you can just pick a sport like football, or let's meet halfway. Let's go pickleball or paddle, where you can go find a club down the road, play it for an hour or two on a Saturday morning, get your fix, and then be with your family the rest of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite the constraint for British baseball. I'm not like asking a question or anything, Matt. You just kind of got the wheels turning when you're talking about not having enough time.
Yeah. But I mean, like, even stuff with, like you're saying then, that's for people at our level. Well, I'd say our level, like I'm close to being your level. But for people our age or playing sport in the adult leagues, but then you've got, look at the kids as well, because the same thing applies to them. I mean, in Manchester, we have a really, really good coaching setup, but there's not a position to have games played. So they're just training. So that's fine. That works. You know, good couple of hours of training in there, and you have a scrimmage, and it works. But wouldn't you love to see T-ball? Wouldn't you love to see those junior leagues come back, the pony leagues come back? But it all starts with people just taking that plunge and starting it. I mean, J-Rod, we've spoken loads about starting something in local area, like just like fantasy. Like, you drive past a big area, a field, on your way to work, or you're going to the shops, and you just think, oh, do you know what? There'd be a cracking baseball field, that.
Yeah.
Look at the area. Look at the houses it's near. It's right near a kid's park. That'd be great. Get a baseball diamond built there. My question is, what's stopping people from doing it? There's not, like we spoke about it off air as well. Like, there's all it takes is one person to have an idea. I've got loads of ideas, but I'm not intelligent enough to start them or have the time to be able to implement them. Because if I took any more projects, my wife would absolutely fling me out top floor of this window, but people out there, like I said before about the kids' basketball, I tried to get Little involved in basketball, and there was nothing in our local area. The nearest club to us had a waiting list, I think it's like 4 or 5 teams, and a waiting list to get kids from 5, 6, 7 years old on the books, whatever age they're starting at. And that's it. And you tell me that's the end of the opportunities. It can't be the end of the opportunities. All it takes is one person to go to a local sports shop, buy a cheap basketball, and then ask in the local community Facebook group and say, I'm going to do some stuff for the kids. I mean, I know there's stuff there, you can't just have some random person going, oh, bring your kids down to this field, I'm going to play basketball with them. You can't do that. But if you've got parents that are coming out with those kids, straight away you've got 5 kids there and 5 coaches. If they're bringing their kids down to a basketball thing, chances are they're interested in playing basketball, and they will help out. Or there might be someone else, like I actually used to coach. And before you know it, you've got the nucleus of something on your doorstep. Can't play baseball. Why not? You've got a local park. All you need, same thing. You can go to a Sports Direct and buy a baseball set for 17 quid that's for kids. And then, so you advertise in local community Facebook groups. You talk to your kids' PE teachers. You do anything and everything that you can do at local scout huts. And then your fantasy of this baseball team for kids becomes reality. And that's not because you're doing it. It's because you planted that seed for someone to be able to pick it up and go with it. To write an email to the local council and say, can I use this field? Can I have a few quid, tell this? To write to BS UK, to write to Sport England. I did it with the basketball thing. I ended up asking around, got put in touch with a guy at Basketball England, and I was just like, how do I get my basketball coaching certificates so I can do something for my son and his mates and anyone else that passes at a local park or the local gym where they've got basketball courts? Got no baseball field near us, loads of football pitches and 6 knackered basketball nets, but they're all workable and usable. One of them is even 9 foot, which is ideal because the kids are able to reach it. Just don't have the time to be able to do it. I ended up being the coach of the kids' basketball team for 1 season, and that was it. That's all I could do because I couldn't commit. It was never going to be my team. Didn't want it to be my team. I just wanted to help out and keep it going. But with the help of other people, group of people that have that idea, it can start and it can work. Why not? And there's probably people listening to this now going, oh, but you've got this to consider, and this consider, and this consider, and this consider. And there might be, I don't know all the answers, I'm just asking the question. If there are people out there that are passionate enough that want to do it, then do it. There's nothing so. I think people nowadays are too afraid to go ahead and do something, start something, because it might work, not because it will fail. Because if it fails, you can go, well, I tried it, it didn't work, and it's done. But if it works, you're in. And then you've got to do another one, and another one, and another one. And then it starts to get real. And then people are depending on you, and the kids or whoever are depending on you. It's great to see so many new baseball teams popping up in the British Baseball Clubhouse Facebook group. There's new ones coming up all the time, and it's great because it's growing and sport is growing. But we need to get those kids involved too, because without the kids, your pipeline's gone.
We've talked about this, Charlie. Are you familiar with the sports development continuum? Every NGB in the UK should have a sports development continuum. I'm going to write it down. I hope it shows up.
What's an NGB?
National governing body. UK rowing, UK judo, all that should have this same structure. So imagine a pyramid. At the bottom, you have a foundation, and just a level above that would be participation. 1 level above that on the pyramid would be performance. And then the top, the apex of the pyramid, is excellence. That is the model. Please pardon my pyramid. It looks more like a birthday party hat. But that's what it looks like. You have your foundation, participation, performance, and excellence, and it filters its way up. Foundations here at the bottom, that's grassroots. Then it goes into participation, which is open age. Then if you're still going up, performance-wise, which is, maybe a first team, maybe a little competitive, and then it gets into excellence, which would be national level competition, international level competition, and that's kind of the way it flows. Now, British baseball has a different sports development continuum. And if I may, and this isn't a dig on anyone, okay, but we do have a foundation stage but it is a sliver. It is tiny. It's here. Our participation, massive. So we're not growing up, or we're not building the foundation. We're actually growing out. So these new teams are great. That's awesome. But we're talking about older players who start playing in their late teens, 20s. So that creates this. The participation is massive. Performance, I don't know. Charlie, you want to help me with performance? What actually would be considered performance in this country, the NBL?
Well, I mean, the difficulty is, right, I mean, the highest that you can theoretically go, and just being realistic, because the less restrictive GB tournaments won't take domestic guys anymore. And I really, really hate the discourse around should they, shouldn't they. I really hate that kind of conversation, because I struggle to form my own thoughts, let alone, anyone else's in terms of that. But, so you can remove the upper tier of excellence from there, right? So that probably doesn't exist. Yeah. So then you're talking about performances, the NBL. If you do well at the NBL, you may get to go to Europe in some capacity.
You get to go to Slovakia or some obscure Eastern European city and play baseball, which that's the goal.
I mean, that's the dream.
But that's it.
Yeah.
That's all we got.
Yeah. I mean, you can maybe style out a sort of a Danny Catalan career and end up in Barcelona, but really that's just doing a really good job at the performance stage, right? It's not really.
The difference with Danny is, though, he lived and breathed it throughout his youth, through college and everything, because that's the environment he's raised in. And we just live in a culture where baseball, people still don't know it exists in this country. Regardless of how much it's growing. I spoke to my son's basketball coach the other day on the way home in the car. I was taking her back to her home, and I was just talking to her about it, and I found myself getting really passionate involved with her again, and she had no idea. And she's involved in sports, and I'm not saying that she should know about it, but it's not there as an option or like people to find and think about.
And if that doesn't get sorted out, Matt, like, this is unsustainable. This was going to tip, because this will not be able to hold it up.
So
at a certain point,
from what you're learning at the moment at university and doing your doctorate and stuff, what do you think can change to make that more balanced?
Before you go, Gerard, there is one thing that I would really, really like to say, and I've probably said this to anyone who would get towards the back end of a pint with me, who has got the patience to not walk off at the mid-pint stage there. But I think the number one thing we need to do. Have you both been to Hull in a baseball capacity?
Yeah, love it. Beautiful field.
I've only been to Hull away against Burnley.
Nice.
Only time I've ever been in Hull. But one day I want to get up there for baseball.
Fair enough. Well, they have. I mean, last time I was there, the stage that the field was at was detached cutouts, if that makes sense. So you've got the 4 circles, or maybe a circle and 3 triangles sort of thing. Completely in, no dirt, warning track or anything like that. Just complete grass everywhere. Proper mound. Mound's pretty good. Enclosed permanent field, really high backstop. They were at a stage where the dugouts were uncovered but built in. They were, and they were at the stage where they had the frame of a batting cage, and it was just a case of going to the shipping container, getting the netting out, and you've got a batting cage. Getting to that stage, I don't know if you can picture that in your head. How much as a rough cost do you think that would take? Again, not to own the land, it's leasing the land, so just to get that.
Depends on.
Yeah, I mean, it's an impossible question.
Hire 20, 30 grand.
Okay. It's a great bracket. One Farnham field, again, not to own the land or anything. I've been to Farnham with you. I know you've been there. How much to build one of those fields?
A few $100,000, I would say, maybe close to $1 million to level it. It looks like it wasn't a natural place for a baseball field.
So, I mean, this is kind of unconfirmed numbers, but the 2 numbers I were given for Hull was 25k, and for one field at Farnham was around 250.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously that lends itself quite easily mathematically that you get 10 hulls for one field at Farnham. I really, really, really hate being political, but at some stage, if I ever do get political in baseball, my entire thing would be, if we can get a hull in every major city of the country, that shaves off. The first thing you said was we were talking about what time you have to leave the house on a road game. For a home game, which is how long a drive is the home game?
Still 2 hours.
It's 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
What time do you have to get there? What time does
We
your
got to
horrible manager tell you to get there?
between, well, if he's happy, 9:30. If he's not, then it's
And
9.
if he's realistic, yeah, it's
Yeah,
9, right?
yeah, if he's realistic.
If we've got a permanent field, what do you think the realistic time would be?
We could probably get there for 9:45, I would say. Maybe, no. Yeah, 9:45, 10 o'clock.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
already that's an hour. And I don't have to tell you what an hour as a dad, what an hour in the morning on a Sunday morning is to dads, and how more accessible that is for what the broader point of the community. Because suddenly, I mean, you've gone from 9 well 6 to 10 well 5 straight away there. We get to a stage where it's floodlights and baseball's more regional and it gets stronger because we have these hubs for people to attract into. It's 2 hours in and out. We're playing in regional weeknight games, and that's the foundation of it. It doesn't need to be as grandiose as fun. It just needs to be permanent, identifiable within the community, accessible, and just permanent.
Yeah. Accessible and permanent is massive, because then this, going back to the pyramid, this would be something at least. And the fact, like, just look at the numbers, and again, not slating anyone, but Gavin Marshall's still the only player that's ever signed who's produced in this country, and he signed an independent contract that wasn't even an affiliated team. So we've never produced a player that signed with an affiliated team. I mean, unless you probably go back way back in the day, maybe, I don't know, in the 30s or something, but it's just not there. And the reason why is because it's not accessible, especially to children. And it's not, there's nothing for the cream to rise to the top. And you know what I mean? That environment's just not there, unfortunately. And I don't want to be too negative or anything like that, but you asked me about what I'm learning and how it can apply. Not really learning too much about this. It's something that I teach my students, my level 3 students, BTech in sport. But I'm kind of learning how to teach athletes. And I guess if you bear with, I can draw another pyramid framework for you. So I do like my pyramids. If you go into this pyramid here.
It's even worse than the last one.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
The pyramid's got
that's
three
brutal.
sides.
It's natural. It's a natural pyramid. So you look at the performance here. So in this case, you can apply this to anything. So you can apply this to athlete development, or you can apply it to developing baseball in a country. But performance is at the top. Performance is what we focus on. I just talked about it with Gavin Marshall. Charlie just talked about it with playing games under the floodlights. But performance is the apex, right? You need to work your way up to that. You start with learning. You have to learn. And that's where we can start in this country. Learn how to communicate with the council, learn what the councils need to be able to get that land, learn how to coach kids, learn how to engage kids, learn how to make sessions fun and give them problems to solve in training instead of just making them repeat solutions over and over and over again. Actually let them solve some problems that they would find on the baseball field. So learn how to do that. That's the bottom of the pyramid. Once you can learn, you can go to the next level, which is contribute. You can't contribute without learning. All right. And that's where things get confused. Contribution without learning is you're going to lead people astray and you're going to lose kids. Okay. Once you hit that learning piece, you can then contribute, you can then lead, and then performance happens. And that's the pyramid that I'm doing. That's what I'm learning about in my doctorate. Shout out to Richard Young, who did some research with repeat Olympic medalists. And they did exit interviews for Team Canada. And he found that repeat Olympic medalists kind of dipped in and out of these zones. It wasn't just about performance. There was like an ebb and a flow to it. So I'm trying to take that to baseball and to coach development. And if I were to start somewhere in this country, it would be down here, learn the environment, learn what it takes, learn how to communicate with those council members. And then once you learn, we can start contributing to the world. That's just the framework. Rant over, Matt.
I cannot wait to see what you guys manage to edit out of this.
I don't do anything anymore.
This has been phenomenal, but all over the place.
We could probably go down a lot of different rabbit holes, but Matt, on the Coaching Union podcast, we always end with a lightning round.
No.
We stole the idea from Eric Cressy, a famous baseball podcaster who I look up to, my inspiration.
Oh, that was me.
You are a 1A, 1B. An A1B. Are you ready?
As I'll ever be.
All right, Matt. And I ask this one to every guest. What is a book, or if you don't read, a podcast that you would recommend for all of our listeners
About sport or just in general?
in general?
I'll give you a book. I'll give you a
Nice.
podcast.
Nice.
The book that I really enjoyed was, I think it was called Baseball Life Advice by Stacey May Fowles. Let me make sure that's right. Someone fact check that for me. Lenny Bleasy. Yeah, it was just full of really good stuff. Podcast. The Daily Stoic. 10, 15-minute episodes and just little bits of philosophy. It's ancient philosophy that can be applied in today's crazy world. Sort of like a nice stripped back way of thinking. That's where I got the mantra for. It's like writing things down, have that in front of me all times, keeps me focused on what my yearly goal is to do, be more creative, create new things.
Nice. I like that, Matt. Stoicism, I've tried to get into Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And I could probably spend the rest of my life reading that book or listening to that audiobook and I had this conversation with Saeed from Birmingham. Yeah. And we were talking about it. It's like, it's just so dense. You could take one little blurb from that and spend a week or two just like,
well, Ryan Holiday, the host of Daily Stoic, does a lot of stuff for meditations, and he sort of tries to break it down and do bits from it. Nice. I used to listen to High Performance podcast as well. That was quite interesting. But I just found that I had too many podcasts on the go, and I was being very selective about what I was listening to. But still worth listening. Dave Humphries does that one. That's good, especially in like the sporting realm.
Charlie, you got your second question?
Yeah. So if I could wave a magic wand, Matt, and I could remove one barrier to British baseball for yourself. So I want you to go fairly specific, so not just maybe time, but one aspect that makes it difficult time-wise. What would be the one thing that you'd remove if you could remove anything?
I think anyone that's involved in British baseball will have their own stuff, but I think it would be accessibility. If there was Manchester has a team. Manchester has one team. But it has a lot of softball teams, but only one baseball team. There's no reason why there couldn't be 6 teams within Manchester, and then you have an M25 league, or whatever it is. But I don't know ways around here. You have it contained within itself. Me and Jared have spoken about this years ago, I think it was. This is why I know my answer to this, because it's always stuck with me. But if you have a couple of local teams, or even like if you've got 50 odd players playing out of one club, there you go. You've got 5 teams. Just have your training session in the off season, make it into a league on its own. You've got your own Manchester Baseball League there with five teams that can play instead of training. Straight the rules down. A great interview that I did with Tom Thornhill, who did this at Norwich, and it works. They have their night leagues. They have a simpler version of the game. They have shorter innings. I think they start on a 1-1 count, and anything goes foul is counted as a strike. I can't remember the whole thing of it. And it works. If everyone plays, everyone feels involved, and no one feels left out. And I think they charge like £2 or something a game for it, and that pays for everything. And then the players there that aren't playing do the umpiring. Everyone takes turn umpiring, and then before you know it, you've filled a gap for umpiring needs. You've got players that are actively playing games. You could even make it into a draft. You could even do a draft, and you're all like together, where it's your A team, your B team, your C team players. Everybody's involved. Iron sharpens iron, and you all get on, and you just have your own little league, and off you go. And then see what spawns from that. So for me, it'd be accessibility. I mean, I'm quite lucky that it's maybe 25, 30 minutes drive from my house. It's not 2 hours like J-Rod to go to. But if I had a team that was on the park that's just around the corner, easy done. 10-minute walk, 15-minute drive. I mean, it's half the time what it is. I mean, I love the Manchester baseball setup, and I always take Elliot there. But, if there's something local and closer, then boom, you've got 2 teams, and that spawns something else, which is why I've always said, like, you should look at getting schools involved and scouts, guides, get the kids playing, see what happens.
Yeah, get the kids playing. You mentioned 2 hours away, Matt. I'm still an hour from Manchester. That's probably the closest club. So it's just a big ask for me to do it, but just imagine that stress being put on a parent to get their kids around. And siblings, what if one sibling doesn't like baseball? What if one sibling has gymnastics and conflicting times? So yeah, the accessibility piece is huge, man. It's massive. Last question, Matt, I didn't forget. I don't know if you know Charlie, but Matt is a massive Bolton Wanderers supporter.
Oh, good grief.
Were you aware?
Jesus, not even I was going to admit to this.
I'd
With
like
live
to.
football.
I'd like
There's quite a few Bolton British baseball fans.
J
I think-
Max, right?
Please,
Yeah.
and J Max, yeah.
Ian as well? Yeah.
I'd like to know your favorite Bolton Wanderers player of all time
Oh, there is a right answer.
So
and why. Justify.
I was very lucky as a Bolton fan to have the John McGinleys, the Andy Walker, the Alan Thompsons, the White Hot team of '94 that got promoted, the one that when they beat Reading. There are so many great players. Jussi Jääskeläinen, the goalkeeper,
Great
phenomenal. Super Kevin Davis, the way he bullied Patrick Evra every time they played Manchester United, where we won or lost, was just brilliant. I loved seeing multi-millionaire players getting humbled by Big Kev. JJ Okocha, Ivan Campo, Fernando Herrera, York AF, Abdoulaye Faye, Nicky Hunt. I can't pick out a single player because too many of them have been responsible for great memories and great times. And I suppose one that probably sticks out more is Stelios Giannakopoulos because he was signed from Olympiakos. Now, when I worked in Greece in 2004, when we signed him, nobody knew about. I thought I could be a Bolton fan and get away with just working the bar, doing what I was doing. People come in from all over the place, like, "Hey, what football team sport Bolton?" Don't care. But when you're in Greece and half the island that you work for and the bar owners are Olympiakos fans and you sign one of their best players, everybody knows you as the guy that took their favourite player. So it kind of made me more of a standout person from where I was in this little speck island in the middle of nowhere. You know, it did make me feel like us to that bit. So Stelios from a personal level, just because I was funny. But I can't say. I really can't. But even in the dark times, there was the team of kids that were when I thought Bolton were going to go bankrupt and be around no more. I took my son to his first game. We played Coventry, and it was 0-0. And they played 16 and 17-year-olds. Every single one of them, they're no longer with part of the club doing release. They're not even. I don't know where they're playing. Every single one of them is a hero and responsible for a great time because they played when no one else would because they weren't getting paid. The owner at the time decided he just wasn't going to pay the players because it was coming out of his pocket. Well, you bought a football club, son, you should be paying those players. And loads of them walked and refused to play. Rightly so, they shouldn't play, not getting paid. You don't play. I don't care. People always go about, the multimillionaires, they should be able to play. It's to play 90 minutes of football. At the end of the day, they get paid to play. They get paid. And they just like us, we live to within our means, hopefully. They're probably doing the same, but on a much grander scale. They still depend on their income. And so I kind of supported them, and I kind of didn't. So it's a bit 50-50, but every single one of them, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and 18-year-olds, and Phil Parkinson, for playing when no one else would. Kind of like a Hollywood story in itself. If it was in the States, you've got like the NFL walkout or the MLB walkout and the so-called scabs or scrubs come in. That's what it was. And they did it. They played. I love Fernando Herrera, and so happy I see him play.
Matt, I think we touched upon something there. I think you dropped a small egg there. Did you live and work in Greece when they won the Euros?
I did.
Unbelievable.
I've never seen carnage like it. And what's even more insane is a few of us, me and my friends, were invited to one of the big nightclubs on the island where I was working. It was full of Greek nationals, and that party did not stop. Did not stop. I don't think anyone paid for a drink that night or anything. There was, I didn't notice at the time. If you've ever been on holiday in Greece, you probably know about the toilet situation. So this is like 20 years ago, 12 years ago now. And there were water tankers driving through the streets and people hanging off them, firing guns in the air, shenanigans. I thought it was a petrol tanker. This guy's firing a gun in the air on top of a petrol tank is what I thought. And I thought we were going to die. It's like, that idiot's going to blow us up. Yeah, 23 years old I was, hundreds of miles away from home. And my adopted national team went and up against the odds and won it. And it was beautiful. beautiful to see. It was just brilliant.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Good stuff, Matt.
it was just top. Great times, great people.
Love that. I think, Matt, thank you. Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming on mine.
Yeah, I
To do these double
appreciate it,
episodes
man.
in.
This was good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's been good I was very, very nervous and slightly stressed before it started. And I'm not like glad it's out of the way, but I'm very relieved to have done it. Because again, it's sort of like, for me, it's like, I feel like I'm now in the flow. I'm now back on the saddle, get my guests lined up, get recording, get back after it. It's kicking the ass I needed. And it was a good conversation with good people. I didn't hear what you said then, but I know it was something snarky.
No, it wasn't anything snarky. I'm just saying, like, now you're in the right flow state to find my guy, Tony, from 87.
The Cobham Yankees.
The Cobham Yankees player. That's what I want your entire focus to
I
be.
wrote it down, Charlie, just for you.
Nice.
I'll find him.
Man, I mean, if he was let's say he was 14 in 87. How old is he now? Like, oh,
There's only a couple of years older than me, you cheeky sod.
87. No,
I was old.
59.
No.
59?
59.
No.
Yeah, ish.
Somewhere
Now-
around there. Ballpark.
Yeah.
Now he's showing so fortunate for his lack of math skills and dropping baseballs and smashing
Good.
monitors.
I can't do it on a podcast call. That's
Don't mind. Edit it out. Don't need to be him.
right on. Good stuff, Matt. Thank you. I appreciate the time. And again, thank you for everything you've done to get this off the ground.
Didn't do anything. You two did it.
I did less than you, man.
Get out then.
All right. Cheers, Matt. And thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it. Always a
No,
pleasure.
thank you, both.
All right.
Take it easy, peeps. Have a good.
Thank you so much for listening to this special crossover episode of the Coaching Union podcast. We hope you enjoyed our chat about coaching philosophies, the challenges of British baseball, and building a sustainable sports community in our country. If you're eager to sharpen your skills or need a bit of mentoring as a player or a coach, remember, you can always reach out to me at thecoachingunion@gmail.com. As always, your support means the world. So please like, share, and subscribe to help the show grow. Until next time, this is Jonathan Rodriguez and Charlie Batho reminding you to keep growing. Bye, everyone.